Hello, creators. I'm Gwyn LaRee, and I am here on behalf of the Neurodivergent Creators Collective, and we're going to talk about daily practices for actors. Now, if you've watched the warm-up video, you already know it's super important to get your body moving, to get your brain moving, to get your mouth and facial muscles moving before you get to work. And you can do that every day. One of the things I just learned today is reading aloud for 5 minutes a day really gets your voice kicking and gets you used to hearing your own voice. That's something I'm going to add into my routine. Now, the part we didn't talk about so much is moving your brain. And that seems a little bit kind of intuitive. Okay, I'm going to think about stuff, and heck, I might even write out a character description or backstory. But as a performer, more and more as you go along your journey and you're learning, we need to be constantly watching, listening, thinking about how people act. What choices did you make in your life that, if you'd made the other choice, could have put you on a totally different path? Because all of our characters start with us. We're it. Chadwick Boseman said, every character starts with yourself because you have to know yourself first. And he was exactly right. So you need to do some self-reflection. For myself, back in the 80s, I was invited to move to Los Angeles and become an apprentice to a well-known stuntman. I didn't do it. I decided, no, I'm going to stay in Sacramento. I'm going to get married. I can have a career from there. No, I ended up joining the Marine Corps instead. That was a pretty major life decision. But most of the characters I play are not military veterans. So when I'm looking at them, I'm thinking about, well, what would have happened if I stayed and got married, but I didn't join the Marine Corps? And the way we know what that actually looks like is by looking at all the people around us. When I was in high school and a theater student, I had tons of notebooks filled with notes about characters. I'd go to the mall. Remember malls? And I'd just watch people. And, you can see the older couple holding hands and how he opens the door for her and she keeps her hand on his arm. And I would make notes about that. I'd also see, say, a middle-aged couple that are walking with their arms crossed, and they are not agreeing. And she really looks like there's any place else in the world she would rather be. And you make notes about that. And those are the notes you'll go back to when you're thinking about building your own characters, because you've observed them. One of the questions my acting coach asks me on a very regular basis, what do they eat for breakfast? What's their biggest secret? What's their secret dream? And those are all great things to think about. And we move our brain by writing them down, documenting it. The next part of moving your brain is read. Read everything. We have got a whole list of recommended reading on our resource page for the Neurodivergent Creators Collective, and specifically for actors and voiceover, and we're building up the other areas. We will get there. We're just starting out. But read biographies, read about acting, read about Katharine Hepburn. There are a multitude of books available about acting on film and acting on stage and famous people's memoirs or biographies. The more you read, the more you understand. And it opens your mind so you can kind of embrace that other viewpoint. Remember, when you're building a character, you don't want to judge them, but you do want to find the decisions that kind of made them who they are. So I've played a couple of very racist, very not very nice people. But my character doesn't believe they're racist. My character doesn't think they're mean. I believe in that role that these people have hurt me in some way. Maybe I got beat up by a Mexican girl in junior high. And so I know they're just out to beat me up. They don't like me because I have red hair. And that's how you build that character that's believable. You're not judging them. Remember, every character is the hero of their own story. We all look at our lives, not from so much how other people see us, but what we're doing. We're the star of the show. And there's not very many people who can let that go. So you're reading, you're writing, you're taking notes, you're paying attention. You're also watching. I don't generally care for documentaries. There's very few of them that I really like. I am all about story, all about cool characters, and documentaries don't generally have very good explosions. I like explosions, but I watch them. And I watch them to see how they are putting out that information, understanding how a documentary format works as opposed to an episodic or a feature or a romance, because all of those genres are going to be a little bit different. And as you move forward in your performing career, you also really need to watch people's performances. One of the movies on our recommended viewing list on the Neurodivergent Creators Collective resource page, you should check it out, is The Devil Wears Prada. The reason that movie is there is Meryl Streep plays this phenomenally strong woman who absolutely knows what she's doing and is often interpreted as being overbearing and mean. But she doesn't see herself that way. She has gotten to where she is by being strong, by knowing the industry. And she has this young intern that's not figuring it out, but thinks she is. That's the kind of performances you want to be on the lookout for. Once you start looking at stories that way, it kind of takes you out of the story a little bit. It's a lot harder to just dive in and be brainless when you realize that that character is really wooden and is not reacting to the other characters in the scene. And you're wondering, what the heck's wrong with him? Why did the director let him do that? Why didn't the producers tell him they needed to get another female in there because she's not cutting the cake? It happens. So if you pay attention, file that away. What is it that makes that performance unbelievable to you? Why does that stick out and bring you out of the story to go, damn, I don't believe that. That person's not there at all. On the other hand, when you're watching and you're listening, if you hear a really great monologue, and please, not the big famous ones, no one else in the world needs to hear the president's speech from Independence Day. It's been done to death. But if you're watching and listening, you'll find these really great monologues, sometimes in the place where you least expect to find them. I found a great monologue for a character of my age and ability in The Last of Us. So I stopped it, marked the time, and then we continued watching the episode. But the very next day, I went in and I copied down that monologue piece by piece by piece. And then I got a little bit of the scene around it, and that's the next scene I'll be working on with my coach. And we'll talk about that process in another video. But I only found it and only recognized that, wow, there's so much power, there's so much backstory in this speech. Because now I look for them. Now I'm watching for them. So that's about it for now. Sorry, I went a little bit over my 10 minutes, but move your body, move your muscles, move your mouth, and move your mind. Start watching, start listening, write out character books, and I'll see you on set.